Hello and welcome to the latest Meet the Manager video and podcast of the 2022-23 season with Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe, and in this series we interview an FPL manager with an interesting story to tell or has an exceptional record in the game. This time we got both. This time around we're speaking to professional footballer Jordie van der Laan. Now have I pronounced that correctly? And Jordie, how are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, that's very well.
Oh,
Very
that's,
well.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
My time spent occasionally with Dutch people has paid off.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, we usually say, well, if you get to England, they say like Jordie, but it's yeah, we just pronounce it Jordie
Oh,
without
Jordie.
the
Oh,
yeah,
so I did get it
yeah,
wrong. So you were
yeah.
very
But
kind there.
I'm used to both, so I've been in Australia, so yeah.
Okay, no, I shall be a native and Jordie, I shall say. So, yeah, how are you? You are a professional footballer, but you were a professional footballer. You're now
Yeah, I were, yeah,
You're
yeah,
now an amateur footballer. Various things have happened, particularly with injuries as well. That
yeah,
you can tell
especially
that. So,
injuries.
so tell us a bit about your football career, where you started, where you've been, and where you are now.
Yeah, well, a long time ago, a very long time ago, I was in the academy of PSV Eindhoven.
Hmm.
But that's a very long time ago. So when I went to senior football, I was just playing amateur league, which I'm doing now as well. But in between, when I was 24,
Hmm.
I scored a couple of goals at
Oh,
a good amateur level,
yeah.
and then I went to play professionally in Holland.
Okay.
Um, that was 4 years ago, but since then I got injured, and yeah, I've had a lot of injuries since then. Before I was never injured, so it's been a bit
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, okay.
uh,
Bit hit
but
and
yeah,
miss.
now I'm back to playing in amateur leagues, and yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So during the time as well over the last year or so, you've been in the Australian second tier with
yes,
Bentley Green, sorry.
Bentley Greens,
But
yes,
once again, so injury sort of curtailed that as well. And you've also played for Telstar, and we'll come to that in a second in the Dutch leagues.
yeah.
And
I know what's gonna happen now.
yeah, I know. And you're currently playing in the fourth tier of the Dutch
Yes,
league
yes,
system, and you're which is sort of amateur level
yeah,
there. So yeah, I want to go to Telstar. So from Wikipedia, which is the font of all knowledge, so
yeah,
it said that you made your debut for Telstar in Dutch leagues in 2018. But in May 2019, your contract was terminated after you falsely reported as sick to training so that you could attend a semi-final match in the Champions League with Spurs and Ajax. And you were there with Fantasy Football Scout's very own Will Timbers, and
yes.
you were spotted. You were photographed there. So yeah, I mean, I've sort of explained the basics of what happened, but yeah, what happened there?
Yeah, that's pretty much the basics. What happened? I've known Will since back then. I
Hmm.
think a year back then. I knew he was a Spurs fan. I'm a big Ajax fan myself.
Yeah.
Um, but I played for Telstar, and Ajax was were obviously that season very good in the Champions League. They reached
Hmm.
the semifinals. And my own season wasn't going very well. It was the season I got injured
Hmm.
for. While I've had more injuries, but like really minor. And the season at Telstar, I was injured for a long period for the
Hmm.
first time in my life, um, from October until February, the end of February, if I remember correctly. Um, and then I got back, but we won a couple of games, so it was tough for me to get back in the side.
Hmm.
I didn't have the best relationship with the head coach.
Okay.
Um, so at the end of the season, yeah, Ajax was in the Champions League semi-final, and Will messaged me that he had a ticket for the
Hmm.
semi-final in London. And I thought by myself, well, yeah, I have to train. We have a game on Friday. Not that I missed the game, but yeah, I had to skip training. Um, and I thought, well, if we play for something with Telstar, so if we can still reach anything, then I won't go, even though I knew I wasn't going to play. Um, So there was one league game left. Okay, I'll go to something. What prior to that, there were 2 league games left.
Okay.
And I was on the bench, and I was on the bench for the full game, and we could still win a period. I'm not sure if you say it like that in England. So we could still win the last period, and we were 1-1 against Volendam, and I was on the bench for the full game, which I didn't expect because I came on as a sub the week before, and I did very well. But we drew 1-1, and then we didn't have something to play for anymore.
Okay.
And I still, in the back of my mind, I knew that Will had a ticket for me. So we had one league game left, and I was like, what do I do? Chances of me starting are basically 0. We don't play for anything anymore. I can possibly come on as a sub, but like 10 minutes max. It was, So,
so you made an executive decision.
So I made a decision to go to Spurs. That was the decision to make first. But then you think by yourself, how am I going to do that? Because you have to train, obviously. So I thought, like I said, I didn't have the best relationship with the coach. So I knew if I was going to ask him, that he would have said, that's not going to happen. So I was like, Champions League semi-final, London. What do I do? So I called in sick. That's basically what happened. And then I traveled to London on Monday. I called in sick on Sunday night. I traveled to London on Monday, and the game was on Tuesday. So I was kind of nervous still, even when I was in London. Like, you called in sick, but you still have to call in again for Tuesday and even Wednesday. And then on the Tuesday night, the game was on television, of course, all around the world.
Yeah.
And I sat front row with Will, and I got spotted like 4 times at least.
It was also on the big screen.
Yeah, on the big screen.
Oh, no.
And it was also because Will was doing there was a foul on the pitch, of course. And Will was doing the VAR sign on the seat.
Yeah.
And that's the replay they showed first, I think. So, and I was next to Will, and they showed Will, but I was standing next to alongside him. So
did you see yourself on the big screen at the time as well?
No, you mean in the stadium?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, because that would have been that heart sink moment. Of just
but
smiling away, and
that was first half.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, even before the game, Will asked me when I was still in the Netherlands. He asked me, "Do you want to sit front row with me, or do you want to sit upper tier somewhere else?" Because I think he had a friend or his brother.
Yeah.
Who also had a ticket, and he said, "Well, if you sit front row, the chances of you being spotted are obviously bigger than when you sit the upper tier." And I was like, "There are like more than 60,000 people in saying, what are the chances that I get spotted?" So I said, "Let's sit front row." I mean, Champions League semi-final, and that's what happened. First half, and then at halftime, my phone just kept on ringing, and the messages kept on coming in, and I said to Will, "I think we've been spotted because this is crazy." So I checked my phone, and I had more than 300 messages from different people all around the world, from Mexico, Denmark, really all around the world. Went crazy. And that's the moment I got a text.
So how was the second half for you? Because you must have known that you were be in trouble with your employers. Did you just think, I'll just enjoy this anyway?
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it anyway because Ajax were in front. So Ajax even won that game. Don't ask me about the return game, but it was funny even then. I mean, the group app from Telstar with the group of players only, they were just laughing, and everyone just went like, "What the fuck happened?" So it was crazy. It was really crazy. Yeah.
That's quite a story, really. But I mean, we spoke a bit before we came on. You laughed about it at the time. You're laughing about it now as well. And I guess, I mean, that is an anecdote that very few footballers can give, and it is quite funny.
Yeah, it is quite funny. I can see the funny side of it. Even then, I mean, it's not necessarily the way you want to be in the news, because I went viral all around the world. I went on Dutch television, and I explained my story in one program. There were lots of different people from different programs wanted to have me on the table or wherever, but I said no, I'm going to do it once, and I don't want to walk around and say, hey, I'm that guy.
He's that
So
guy, well, luckily here you're partly that guy, but you're also that guy because this is a fantasy football show, and you're here because you have very, very rarely we have this. We have had it once last season, where we get a former or current professional footballer who is actually good at fantasy football as well. And I always find that interesting because you have an insight into what's happening on the pitch. You have an insight into more of the strategy and tactics and how managers and players' minds work as well. So, what it means for a striker actually not to score for a while, or etc. So let's have a look at your FPL career, and I guess one of the key questions I'll ask. I'll just read it out just for the benefit of those listening to the podcast. This shows that you've got 3 finishes within the top 10,000, and that includes last season. So that's very good considering there was 9 million or so playing last season. So it's 9,000 ranked, 7k, and best of all, 2016. 55, so top 100, which is quite good, and lots of other good, lots of others within the top 100k as well, top 50k scores. So you've got a very strong track record there in the game since you've been playing since 2011. The immediate question is, being a footballer, can you think of any examples, or how has being a professional footballer helped you as a fantasy manager as well?
I used to think, like, I got a question before, like a couple of years ago. And back then I thought, well, you think it helps you really well, or it helps you big time. But I think nowadays there's such a involvement of the game of fantasy itself. And even like in football, like you got data analytics everywhere. I mean, every single movement, every single thing that happens on the pitch gets tracked, and so I think back in the days I did have a slight edge being a footballer.
All of that expected goals and the how often
those kind of
those
things.
passes, you were already familiar with those stats anyway.
Well, I wouldn't say I was familiar with it like when I was a professional footballer, because we didn't really. We didn't use that, or we didn't use those kind of things, and especially at my level. I think that's something that's really came, and like really has arisen like the past 2-3 years. But when I watched the games back then, say 4 years ago, you think you have an edge. You watch the game and you think you sort of analyze what can happen, who's playing where. If a player gets injured, can you think of a player who immediately replaces him, who has a low price in FPL? You start to relate those kind of things. But now, the game has evolved so much, and everything gets tracked down. Everything is on Twitter nowadays. So if you think you think you got a player that's sort of a differential, what I call it. He isn't that anymore in a week. So
you've got to get quick with that edge there. I was thinking back to this 2016 season. What happened there? Because you've had strong ranks before, but getting into the top 100, that takes something. That's something I've got into the top 1,000, but top 100, that's another level.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the next step there. So how did that happen? I'm presuming it can't just be luck.
Well, if I look back at it now, I definitely realize I've been lucky back then, and when it's been 2016-17 or the season before, so when I finished 55th, I was like, oh, I've done really well this year. And I remember my last move was Liverpool won the final game of that season 2-0, and I bought Joel Matip, I think, hoping for a 15-pointer.
Yeah.
But in the end, he just got 6 for a clean sheet, which was good as well. But you're hoping to break into the top 10 or whatever. I can't remember my odds of that, but that's that's another point. I sort of regret not having the moves I made from that season available anymore. So I have it on a forum somewhere. I wrote it down. But, so that's kind of my regret. But
no, it's a long time ago. You know, the season at hand is the key one, I guess.
Yeah, but I also remember I broke down my season then. I just take a look back, and there were players like Sanchez, Alexis Sanchez. I think it was Hazard as well, and Harry Kane. And I started to write down when I owned them and when I didn't own them. And even in the season I finished 55th, I was like, oh, there's such a... I could have owned them for way more points. I could have reached way more. But it's something that... how do you say that? There was way more potential even then.
Look, I mean, because you're 28 now. Is that right?
Yes, 28.
28. So my quick maths means you were a teenager when you started playing. As well. But you were going through the youth system of professional football at that time as well.
No, that was way before. That was until I was 13, I think, and then I went back to an amateur club.
Okay.
So I sort of just youth system of an amateur club.
Still playing football at a good level then. So I'm just wondering about being because you sometimes see with professional teams at the moment in the Premier League, they have their own leagues as well. In any of the clubs that you were in at around that time, those early days, 2011 onwards. I mean, at your clubs, did you have club leagues, and were they quite competitive as well in FPL, or did they not do it just because they were in the Dutch league and weren't?
No, I've barely experienced someone in my team that plays FPL. I sort of got into the game because of a local pub, and that's actually where I started as well, playing the game. And then you have conversations with the people from the pub, and even now my friends are like, you are so addicted to the game, and they don't play themselves. I've had a lot of clubs myself, so you experience always there are some people that play the game, but not as fanatic as I do.
So I mean, I think because that's what I was thinking about, really, just how so they're quite different. Your FPL career, your fantasy football career, and your real life football career are quite separate, really.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
I just think now you're what's your position? You're midfielder.
I'm a striker.
A striker. Yeah. And but are you moving back into? No, you're a striker. So what? I mean, being a striker, are you paying particular attention to strikers, or you're looking at all the players? I'm thinking more mentality, really, because strikers, obviously it's all about scoring goals, and so what it's like to be a striker, not scoring, or being on the bench, or being on the pitch and scoring lots.
I've experienced everything, basically.
So how do you? So for example, I mean, at the moment strikers are doing very well, but last year strikers weren't doing very well in the Premier League and in fantasy Premier League. So do you look at those and think, are there any? I just wonder, like, for example, this season, are there any sort of fellow strikers that you see who are perhaps either scoring well or not scoring well, and you think, it could be a change? You've got, I don't know, you've got some kind of empathy with whatever they're going through at the moment.
Well, it's also like, I mean, for FPL, you don't really, you do actually pay attention to strikers, let's call it form or their mentality, but for FPL, you're purely paying attention to points. You want maximize your points, and you do that by having players that score goals, but they don't necessarily have to perform well on the pitch. So let's say the difference in last season, because that's what you mentioned earlier. Last season the strikers weren't like really attractive for FPL.
No.
That was also purely or not purely, but that was also got to do with the mechanism of the game. Like now, how are they priced? How are midfielders performing relative to the strikers? And now it seems, the mid-price strikers like Tony, Mitrovic, they do way better than the mid-price strikers from last season. And
so this season as a striker, I mean, we all see, that we can see obviously who's scoring goals, and we can see the stats and watch the highlights. But for you this season, who are the strikers that have impressed you? And I'm presuming you're going to say Haaland, but you might not. But just in general, in all clubs, from relegation possibilities, mid-table to top teams, who are the strikers that you have got your eye on?
Are you talking about the game now, or just like how they're performing for their club?
In both, because I'm presuming if you're looking at them in terms of that is that's a striker that I believe is going to score lots, then presumably they're going to be good in FPL as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but then on the other hand, you have Ivan Toney, who I've been really impressed with, like what he does on the pitch and how he plays for his team, and just he's very strong in the air. He has a brilliant free kick. His penalties are insane. But then, when you look at his numbers, and I wouldn't say mocked him, but like last season, at the start of last season, he was very attractive in FPL, and his price rose like 4 or 5 times even, while he scored like 1 goal in 5 weeks. So I kind of mocked him on Twitter because of his price rises and everyone picking him while he didn't score. But he's also he always struck me as a really good player on the pitch.
Okay.
But his numbers on the other hand, when you look at his XG, comparing his XG to other similar priced players in the FPL, then you're like, he's less attractive than you think. Although I think his numbers are very much improved.
He's
the past couple of months.
He's in the England squads now for the first time
as well.
So
he deserves that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he could be a player that not only, I mean, already he's in a number of sides and he's getting points as well as real life football. But do you think that that's something that can be, injury aside, that could be sustained throughout the season?
Yeah, well, like I said, he has improved his numbers, and I think Brentford have improved as a club as well.
Okay.
But then it's relative to other players for picking him in FPL, and you look at the fixtures, big time. So that's he was in consideration to be included in my wildcard team last week, but in the end I didn't go for him because of preferring other fixtures from other strikers like Mitrovic, and in the end I went for the double up with Kane and Haaland. But I had like Tony, Solanke, and Isaac for the third striker spot.
Okay, well we'll come to because I'll be asking a few questions about strike, because I've got Isaac and he might be injured. We don't know, but so we might be looking at a replacement.
Yeah, it might be an international injury, but
just before we have a look at your bus squad that you're going into, that you've got to play with for going into game week 9. Just to timestamp this, because these videos are very much you can look at them anytime really. But this is going into game week 9 on the 22-23 season, just as a snapshot of your thinking. But just before we do that, I just wanted to, what's your general attitude to risks? I know after what we spoke about with your time at Telstar, I'm assuming in life you might have a risk-taking attitude, but in FPL, are you a risk taker, or are you straight down the line, no hits and that type of thing?
Talking about a couple of years ago, I used to take a lot of hits
Okay.
because I just calculated them whether they would work on a
Yeah.
like a 2 or 3 week basis. So it was you plan forward. I've always planned forward for like 5 6 weeks. Um, but then when I was taking hits, you calculate -4. You think is this player going to outscore that player in
Yeah.
the next 2 weeks, or so it was really short term thinking.
Okay.
But now as a FPL manager, I think I've developed. Well, at least you start to understand more things about the game, and yeah, like we discussed before,
Okay.
there's way more available. So now I'm a bit more averse and a bit more patient. I wouldn't say I'm against hits, definitely not, because I still like the punts and. But yeah, then again, it's always dependent on one's team and the situation you're in. You have to adapt to the circumstances, and yeah, the circumstances could let you play more aggressively. But yeah, do you have injuries? Do you have players who've lost their spot? Are there blanks and double game weeks on the horizon? So it's always, yeah, I would say it's a bit of a standard stuff, really. But yeah, in a normal situation, I tend to take fewer hits than before.
Okay. Well, let's have a look at your game week 9 squad. So what I've done is I've put it as a squad, and then so people on the video can see that, and I'll just run through the players, and then you can tell me what sort of formation you're looking at, who you're looking to captain, so on. So you've just wildcarded, and you've wildcarded game week 8, and you've got Everson and Pope. And then at the back, you've got James, Cancelo, Trippier, and you've got Cher and Perisic as well. So quite a strong back line. Martinelli, Bowen, Maddison, Paqueta and Bailey in midfield. And then you've got Mitrovic, Haaland and Kane. So the picture you sent to me indicated you're looking at a sort of 3-4-3, but there's a lot on. Well, you've got a lot of good players that are going to be on your bench, I presume. So who are you looking to play and who are you looking to bench?
Well, it's dependent on what happens during the international break, of course. I've currently have, let's start with the goalkeepers. It's Iverson in goal.
Oh, you're just not happy. You think Ward's going to go?
Well, that's also the reason I picked him last week. Yeah, I was hoping for Ward to get dropped. Because this was actually bang on the money for me. This was like I got nothing in the bank.
Right.
So the difference between Ward and Iverson was useful. And I thought the rotation for Leicester and Newcastle would work until the World Cup. For example, this week I got Mitrovic obviously starting at home against Newcastle, and then you think, what do you want to play Pope? Well, if you got Iverson at home to Nottingham Forest, then you want to play him if he plays. But then the rest of my squad, yeah, it's just dependent on what happens. Still, yeah, you have to guess if will Perisic start against Arsenal? Will he be worth it even then? I think I got Perisic on the bench now.
Yeah.
And Cher and Bailey.
And Bailey. Yeah. So a 3-4-3. Haaland for the armband, or are you thinking of another?
Well, it's got to be him, I think.
Okay, yeah,
well, right. unless you go for a Liverpool player at home to Brighton, but how will this be set up? And I've kind of accepted that I'm not owning any Liverpool players this week. Yeah. Also because they have Arsenal and City after, I think. So yeah, I went against Haaland for his hat trick against Forest.
Yeah.
Forest. Yeah. Which one? Yeah.
I was going to say.
And I also captained Salah away to Everton when Haaland scored against Villa. So yeah. People say you shouldn't really pay attention to those kind of things, but always in the end, somewhere in the back of your head, you are like, it's not going to happen again. So you are going to captain Haaland the next time. But yeah, I don't own Salah, so it's not a decision now.
You're happy with Haaland, and then when Haaland misses a fixture in game week 12, I think it is, when the Arsenal game's postponed.
Yeah.
If you've still got a similar squad here, you're happy to put the armband on Kane then?
I was actually I was also looking at like moves ahead, of course, not necessarily plan anything, but I was looking at Kane to Solanke.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere down the line, don't know when, but just to free up funds to get some Liverpool players back in game week 12 or 13 at home to West Ham or 1 week later. So I'm not sure if I own Kane for much longer, even though he's performed very well this season. I mean, I put out a tweet like 2-3 weeks ago. He dropped the price twice, Kane, I think, or once back then.
Yeah.
This season over the entire season, while he's performing better than in his best ever season for Spurs, FPL wise. And in that season, he rose like at least 1 mil from 11 to 12 or something. So that's just that's the Haaland effect.
Yeah.
But
with I mean, I've got Isak who may be injured, he might not. But there was a lot of people were a lot of the analytics lads and lasses were concerned with his low expected goal stats in the last game. But he did score a penalty, and he walked away with 9 points. So but that didn't particularly put me off because I thought Bournemouth handled him quite well. Did you get the impression with that, or do you have question marks over Isak as an FPL asset, or do you think that was perhaps more of a case that Bournemouth are actually better defensively than we think?
I don't think there's a plain answer for that because the sample size for Isak in a Newcastle shirt is like way too small, and they're a different team than Sociedad. But you're trying to relate things with the information available. But I agree that he sort of. I wouldn't say disappointed, but he wasn't as involved as you would have hoped. So as an owner against Bournemouth, but Bournemouth sat down really deep. So it's always dependent on the circumstances. But in the end, he walked away with a 9-pointer. I think Trippier had the ball in his hands for the penalty, or he would have liked to take it as well.
Oh really? I didn't. I didn't spot that.
I think I'm not entirely sure about that. But that's I think some people saw it, but I haven't read about it anymore after. So
because sometimes players. I mean, you would know this more being a player that sometimes they do that to put off a goalkeeper. A player that's definitely not going to take the penalty will pick up the ball and appear to do it, and then just hand it to the actual penalty taker.
Yeah, I think don't Brighton do that? And lift, or at least they they put themselves in the situation to keep other players away from the penalty taker, and I think that's a good idea. I mean, if it works out. To come back to Isak, it was a good penalty nonetheless. But looking forward, I think he's compared to Tony and Mitrovic, and I'm not sure what we got more on that price range.
Okay.
But I'd like to see more from him. But it's also I tripled up on Newcastle defense. So it was either the Newcastle triple up or Isak, but then you downgrade Kane. So he just
You mentioned Solanke as well, so that's another player I've got my eye on because Bournemouth's fixtures are very good. But I don't know much about Solanke because obviously it's been a long time since he was at this level, and for a long period of time, and he was obviously in the Championship last season. But is there anything about Solanke as a striker that you think that he could actually give us some good returns for the good fixtures they've got?
Yeah, the good fixtures, especially because I wasn't, when he was in the Prem previously, I wasn't really convinced by him. But I mean, he gets older. He gets a year older every year. He plays in the Championship. He scored lots of goals. I think he finished second behind Mitrovic for the goal scoring chart. So I mean, he must be a good striker then. And coming back to the Prem, they now got a couple of very good fixtures until the World Cup. He's priced below 6 now. He started at 6, I think. So he's now 5.7.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be really, really good value for those fixtures. But seen much of Bournemouth this season, so I can't really tell. What he convinced me about. They weren't against Forest. and the assist he got was like. It's a small sample, of course, but the XG of it was a very good goal. So it was low XG, and I'm turning into a manager who likes to see numbers and
okay. Just a couple of things. You indicated when in the pitch you sent over that Maddison might be is your vice captain. I have actually put the captain on him and then off again and on again. I actually think he's really good against Forest. What is it about Maddison that you think would be good, not just against Nottingham Forest, but just as a player? I mean, because he's scoring goal and he's a midfielder.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a fixture again, isn't it? So Forest at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Leicester are in a bit of disarray, but he's still. Even against Spurs, he put up some good numbers. He was involved, but it always starts with the fixtures. So Leicester have good fixtures. Bournemouth have good fixtures. Madison and Solanke have relative to the price good underlying stats from previous seasons. And then you got to relate it to what is available. Liverpool players, Chelsea players all weren't appealing because of their blank. Liverpool play Arsenal, City soon. United, same thing. So then that's why I ended up with such a midfield, like mostly mid-price players. Even Paqueta in there was a bit of a punt.
I mean, I was going to come to that. You got, I mean, not only got Paqueta, but you've got Bowen as well. So you've got those two West Ham players, but we're not seeing any form from either them or West Ham as a team. So I mean, I don't own them, and I feel when I look at FPL Twitter that I should have one because their fixtures are so good, and lots of people like yourselves have got these West Ham players, but I'm not seeing anything yet. What are you seeing to double up on them?
Yeah, well, I agree with that. Let's first say Paqueta was a bit of a pun. Just like I had exactly 6 mil available. And combined with their fixtures again, I was like, okay, he's shown good numbers in Ligue 1 and in the Ligue 1 in France and even at AC Milan, I think. So Paqueta was a bit of a punt. I'm already looking at maybe turning him into Zaha soon, but you gotta have the funds. And Bowen was like, I mean, we've all seen what Bowen can do last season. And then you just try to be the first one to have him when he starts banging them in. I mean, you can't really. It's hard to tell when a player starts a goal scoring run and when he finishes one. So you gotta go for the numbers. He's shown very good numbers last season. He's sort of because Antonio was really hot last season at the start, and then you could slowly see a pattern emerging that Bowen was starting to become really good, and then now you just sort of guessing Bowen will come good with the fixtures.
And so overall with this team here going in, because we got a World Cup in game week 16, so it's only going up to then, so the long term plan is possibly Kane down to someone like Solanke and using that money perhaps to get, say, Salah or KDB.
Some Liverpool players probably. Liverpool players in game week 12 or 13. I also want to see first how. So now all 5 forward players for Liverpool are fit. So you want to see how that goes. How that evolves. I'm very intrigued by Nunez. Not necessarily what he does on the pitch, because I'm not convinced by him for 400 million. But when he played, he's been really threatening. And that's how I started this conversation. You want players who score goals, not those who perform well football wise.
Definitely.
So see how that evolves for Liverpool, and then pick your player.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining me. It's been a fascinating insight into that perspective of playing a real life football and the fantasy football. I'm way too old and rubbish play real life football. That's why I do fantasy, but you can do both.
Yeah, well, I feel the same now, but yeah, I'm sure it starts to get better soon. So
I just want to, before we go, just remind everyone to do press that subscribe button if you're not already. Do press like as well. That really helps us. That's really useful. By pressing subscribe, you get to watch all the videos that we do, not just the Meet the Manager videos that are designed to be there for whenever you want to watch them. They're not sort of season specific, but we've got lots of other season and game week specific ones, looking at team news in particular on a Friday, and also we've got the Scoutcast and captaincy, burning questions, all sorts of videos all during the week, and of course many are podcasts as well. So Jordie, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great to
it's been
chat
a pleasure.
to you, and especially in that perspective of being a striker as well, because it's the season of the striker, so fitting that you're here. So good luck with your game week and good luck with the rest of your season.
Yeah, thanks. Same for you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.